Howdy, fellas. Got a battle report for you. Played a game the other day here at the home table, and I brought out the Clan Pestilens and 160 Plague Monks to play against Joseph and his Living Cities army. My 8-year-old chose the battle plan for us, and it was Places of Arcane Power, which neither one of us were real excited about, but you gotta be prepared for those, because it was going to come down to, I think, whoever got the first turn and could get their heroes on the objectives and kind of bunker down, as this one tends to be. So let's look at the list real quick. I didn't go any battalions. He didn't go any battalions. We're just trying to throw as many models on the table as possible. So you can see I have quite a few monks on here. We've got one unit of 40, another unit of 40, another unit of 40, and another unit of 40 here on the line. And then I brought in two catapults and my plague furnace here, which I gave the... Did I give him the artifact? Yes, I gave him an artifact of Grifffeather Charm, so -1 to hit. And then gave the command trait to this guy for an extra pass-off save. So we had... Did I take a battalion? I don't think I took a battalion. So that Vermin Lord Corruptor over there, he has a 4-up, a 5-up natural after save, and then he has that 5-up pass-off from the command trait. And then this one, he would get the -1 to hit. He's already -1 from the Skaven ability, whatever that's called. And so he gets that Lookout Sir in combat as well, as long as there's monks nearby. So that makes him a nice -2 pretty much all the time, as long as there's plague monks around him. My buddy Joe was bringing Living Cities, and he's got a Star Drake there. Off the board, he has a Dreadlord on Black Dragon, and he's got 20 Rangers, some Sisters of the Watch, a Nomad Prince, and a Tree Lord Ancient, and that may be it. Oh, some Paladors, a big unit of Paladors. Okay, so he's all about the ambush in this list and coming off the board edge and whatnot. And he did have 11 drops, and I had 10, so I was able to outdrop him. And I knew I had to go first, because if I didn't, he was going to sprout some trees in the middle or over here. He was going to block one of my sections with trees. So I knew I needed to go first. I outdropped him, and so I took the first turn. My plan was just going to run this guy, this furnace, right up the middle as fast as I can, and then surround it with plague monks, and do the same with the Vermin Lord Corrupt over here. Get plague monks around him, and then I'm just going to sit on those two objectives and try to hold it as long as possible. I'm going to try to threaten some things with these catapults, but really they're just there to be annoying. If they hit, they hit. They're only 160 points. I don't have any more plague monks, so they're just gonna toss stuff out there. So that was a plan. Let's see what pictures I got for this. So there's some. He's got his stuff is very well painted. Mine is painted by Cameron. Thanks, Cameron. Purchased through a few people, I think, but it's a nice looking army too. So in my first turn, here we go. So in my first turn, I run that Plague Furnace as much as he can. So he gets out there. He's out in front, and the Plague Monks can't quite get around him just because of how fast they move. But they're pushing that thing as hard as they can. He does get within 3, so I am able to capture that one. And we have quite a few Plague Monks to react to whatever comes in. I'm fairly certain this thing will stay alive as long as it just doesn't get hit too hard. He doesn't have a whole lot on the table right now. He just had the Star Drake and some Rangers and the Tree Lord over off to the side. So I'm not too worried about it getting hit this turn. If we get double turn, though, that Star Drake might be a problem. And that Star Drake can move a ridiculous amount because it can shoot and then move. My Corruptor, I couldn't quite get him there. I could have run him out in front, but that seemed like too juicy of a target. His Star Drake was quite a bit closer. His Star Drake was over here, and then my Corruptor was right here. He could have gotten in there and munched on him, and I was just going to wait until the next turn, take the next turn. Oh, I did have a Plague Priest over here as well. I brought in a Plague Priest who's just there to try to get me some great plagues. On his turn, so my turn, I score 1 point. I couldn't quite get to that top right objective, but we'll get to it the next turn. His turn, he does spawn some trees. He had hidden his Tree Lord Ancient over here, which I think after the game we kind of figured out was probably not the right spot, because even with a max run, because of the terrain, he was like 1 inch away from getting here. And so if he could have gotten him a little bit closer, he would have had that objective earlier. He was a little scared of the catapults. He had never faced the catapults. He was a little scared about what those would do. So he spawns trees right here in the middle of this spot. It was pretty much the only spot you could put it. You can see our table has some pretty gnarly terrain made by Chris. Thanks, Chris. Makes awesome table. But it does make it hard to put out trees. We had a little village there in the middle too, so this was pretty much the only place you could get. And his Branch Wraith or Branch Witch or something like that spawned in some of these Dryads. So he's got some bodies coming in. Doesn't really help too much on this one because you've got to get heroes. And so, yeah. Oh, his Star Drake came around the side of that building. Didn't really commit it yet. I think he was kind of waiting for that turn 2 to kind of develop. He was a little tentative on it. So you can see this may be the end of turn 2. His Tree Lord Ancient couldn't quite get around there. It's pretty slow. It came in from that side, and it's going to have to go after this one. I think once he realized he couldn't run and get it turn 1, he was going to wait till turn 2. Star Drake was being a little tentative over here. I was thinking he might bring it in to all these Plague Monks. It's probably not the right choice because those Plague Monks are pretty nasty. But if you can keep them off the charge, they don't bite quite as hard. And that Star Drake, I mean, he is good at killing hordes. He did some wounds on this catapult. He may have killed that catapult. These sisters came in right here and put some shots on that catapult. And Star Drake did some mortals. I think that may have been about it. He didn't score any points that turn. So at this point, it was 1-0. And I won the roll-off for the turn. So that was pretty big. If he had gotten it, I know I would have gotten crushed on all sides. He would have brought in his other dragon. He would have brought in the Paladors. He would have brought in the Star Drake. And it would have hampered that unit big time. Those stuff in the middle would have gotten pretty squished. But I got the priority there going in turn 2, and I was able to make a charge. This picture is from his turn 2, so I must not have gotten the picture. But I got these Plague Monks into a charge here onto the Star Drake, and it pulled in the Rangers and maybe even the Nomad. No, Nomad runs right there. But I got that Star Drake down to 1 wound. I could only get in a certain number of Plague Monks. I got an excellent charge. I was able to get them in, but I couldn't pile in as far as I wanted because I needed to keep this protection here for that Plague Furnace because I knew exactly what he did right here. You can see he brought in all the stuff off the back side. But I got that Star Drake down to 1 wound. Oh, it was so heartbreaking. 1 wound. And just a spoiler alert, it gets back to full by the time the game's over. He doesn't do too much damage back. He kills some Plague Monks, but not too much. The Rangers kind of pile in. They get their chance at it, and they do some damage to the Plague Monks. But it wasn't as bad as I was thinking. I think he probably killed 10 or 12 of them. I would have expected more, but it wasn't too bad. So I held on to that one, and I was able to get my Corruptor up onto that top right, and then just surround him with 80 Plague Monks. Basically, you're going to have to go through those 80 Plague Monks to get him, and so that ain't going to happen. But he did, on his turn, he did pretty much what I expected. He brought in these Paladors. That Dreadlord is coming this way, and now his Star Drake is going to finish on these guys. These Rangers luckily are tied up here, so they're not going to hit my main group that's protecting that furnace. But in this turn, he spends a lot of shooting onto Plague Monks and Furnace. He's basically ignoring that top right side with the Corruptor. and he's focusing everything here. That -2 on the furnace is pretty big though, because that neutralizes a lot of his shots. So he ends up shooting a lot into the monks just to try to thin the herd so he can get his guys into my hero and claim that objective. But best laid plans, right? Here's his Dreadlord coming in, which he has an awesome conversion with that, with the Stardrake head and the Carnosaur body, and that maybe the Stardrake wings too, and a rider that's I don't know where from, but it all looks sweet. So he's pulling this guy in around here, and I think he needed like a 6-inch charge by the time he moved again after he shot, and these guys just needed a 3-inch charge. Well, guess what happened? He rolled double ones with this and had no command points left since he moved both of these guys after they shot, and then needed 6 inches on this guy and got a 5. So it was brutal. So I think that was probably one of the major turning points of that game, was failing 2 easily makeable charges, and especially when you roll double ones on those Paladors, because those Paladors, they hurt, especially when they're charging in, and those little monks, they weren't going to have a chance. So if he could have attacked with all those Paladors onto the monks, cleared the way, and then the dragon would have piled in and hit that furnace for some major damage. Wasn't to happen though. Sometimes the dice just won't let it happen. So this is after the next time. So he again doesn't score anything that turn because that Tree Lord Ancient is just barely out of range. He had to go up and down some terrain and was about half an inch out at that point. So here's what it looks like. I retreat back my I almost said skinks. Been playing Seraphim too long. I retreated back this unit of monks here just to get him out of the Stardrake, because I knew they were going to take him out and then they'd get killed, and I needed that protection. I needed that layer of protection. I brought one unit of these Plague Monks over here just to tie up these Rangers so they couldn't get in, and I was able to pile in far enough to where I could get that Stardrake in combat, but to where he couldn't really do much. So that was kind of that goal there, was to tie that Stardrake up there so he couldn't pile in this way on his next turn. I was able to easily make this charge. I mean, who can't make a 3-inch charge, you know? I mean, these Plague Monks are disgusting on that charge, especially when that dice right there is for an extra damage, I think. And so they wiped pretty much all those Paladors. There was one left that I think he retreated later in his next turn. So I'm sitting pretty here. I had that turn. So in places of arcane power, the points keep climbing the longer you hold them. So at this point, I'd got 1 point in turn 1, 3 points in turn 2, and then 5 in turn 3. So I was at 9 points, and he hadn't scored any yet. So at this point, I think mathematically I had the game. He was going to have to bust this bubble up on his turn, which I was pretty sure he was going to be able to do. He had enough shooting, and these two giant dragons could make it in. But the fact that I had this bunker over here, and I didn't think he was going to be able to get through that with the time that we had left, that I think we were going to be okay. So let's see what happens here. Oh, just a close-up shot of the Paladors that are gone. We got some pile-in action going. This must be his turn. Yes. So he has on this Dreadlord, he has an attack first command trait or artifact or something like that. So he gets to attack at the start of his combat phase. Or maybe mine too. I think it's on the charge he gets to do it. So he's going to be able to attack with this one first, and then the Stardrake before I ever get a chance to retaliate. And so I had this one screen left of monks. That was all that was left there, and I think he ended up shooting most of them off here, shooting some here, and I had a very sparsely populated line. I was breaking cohesion like crazy, removing models. You can see the spots I have here. I know they're going to run. I know he's going to kill them, but I'm just trying to keep things pinned out so that that dragon, both those dragons, can't get into my furnace. Unfortunately, he had enough damage that he was able to clear out most of that. When did he put a wall up here? This may be like a turn or two later, because he got the double from 3 to 4, so he was able to wipe everything there. Maybe that furnace stayed on in his turn. Maybe it may have lasted through that turn, because I got this guy down to like 4 wounds left. I almost had him down, but he fell. And he was finally able to slowly walk his Tree Lord over to that left one, score that one. Then he had his Dreadlord on this one, and then he was just going to turn his eye to this one, but at that point it didn't matter, because I was racking up more points for that far objective, and it was safely out of reach. Oh, there's our scoreboard. Yeah, so it ended 16-9. So I kept accumulating points for that top right objective. So if he could have gotten it from me, maybe it would have made a difference. No, it still wouldn't have made a difference. It would have only scored an extra 1 point on that last turn. So I think that's probably why we called it there at that last game. But it was a fun game. It started off thinking I thought it was going to be over a lot quicker when I had that Star Drake down to 1 wound. But he was able to heal up those dragons quite a bit throughout his turns and keep them going. So you got to put them down, or they'll just keep coming back. And they did some nasty damage. I think overall he killed 120 plague monks. I only had 40 plague monks left in the corruptor. Oh, and then this one. Oh, my plague monk, or my plague priest was still there, and then 1 catapult. The catapult, it's a little streaky. That's the way it is. But when it hits, I think it hit pretty hard on one of the ranger units one time. And when it had 10 models, and so it took off like 6 of them or something. It was pretty nice. So he doesn't have a lot of 10 model units, and so I didn't really have a lot of good targets for those catapults. But they're still long range. They're still fun. I like the model, so I'm going to continue taking the catapults. But fun game. It was closer than I thought it would be. If he hadn't failed those 2 charges early on, I think it would have been a little bit better of a game. But being able to just bunker that top right objective early on was pretty crucial. And then him not getting his Tree Lord onto that one was probably the big mistake. Because if he could have gotten on there turn 1 and me on this one turn 1, it would have just been a battle over who could control this one the longest. So a lot of fun, good game. Living Cities, hey, it's not too shabby. You got a lot of tricks in the pocket of Living City. A lot of movement shenanigans and mobility, especially if you're bringing some big giant dragons. So it was fun, good game. Clan Pestilens for Skaventide gets the major win over Living City. Good game.